right, everybody, welcome in. Thanks for joining. We are going to be covering more C# today. Surprise! Today we're going to talk about methods and error handling in C#. And I usually have the title, but today, no, didn't do it. Sorry. But this is C# for streamers and gamers, and we are in the third session today. This is week 3. Okay, you're frustrated with the homework. Perfect. Yeah, so the puzzles are meant to stretch you. They're meant to I don't give you everything you need necessarily to do them, and the idea is when you run into a roadblock, reach out. And you did that, and we talked about some stuff, but you're still struggling a little bit, and that's fine. I don't expect you guys to get these perfectly every time. The whole reason they're challenging is so that we have something to talk about when we start this, to do some review from the week before. All right, so let us go into that. So I'm going to switch over to our other presentation here from last week. Here we go. I want to start from this slide. Stop that. Stop it. Okay, so last week's take-home puzzle, there were 2 parts. Puzzle number 1 was write a program that asks the user for a number, then uses a loop to count down from that number to 0, making sure to display each number in the countdown one at a time. Okay, so let's take a look at that. We have Pratchett, who has submitted some of that in the chat. She's been doing a great job keeping up with these puzzles, and she's a little bit exasperated with this one. So we're going to take a look and see if we can help her out here. Sorry, I don't mean to embarrass you. These are challenging, so don't be embarrassed. If you don't want me to put your stuff up, that's fine. I don't want to make you embarrassed, but I do want to give you an opportunity to see how we can take the ideas that you've come up with, and turn them into something that works. So this is the main process of coding. I mean, every one of us, if you write programs, pretty much every program you're going to write, you're going to end up with some kind of deadlock where you have to sit there and chew through it until you can figure out how to make it work. So this is a common experience. It happens nearly every time. So it's definitely nothing to be embarrassed about. It's definitely nothing to be ashamed about. The fact that you're running into problems means that you're a programmer already. So this is actually a good thing, and we want to encourage this. And you definitely want to be doing things that are difficult so you can learn new stuff. So let's take a look here at what Pratchett has gotten so far. Now I have the most recent thing from her. I'm just gonna write it down here. She may have done more since then, but so far I have this. Oh, by the way, I figured out a way to get these this text to be bigger, which is helpful. So she's got that. She's got console.write. Enter a number between 1 and 10. Okay. Ooh, hello. All right. And then we got players. Okay. I already have a typo. There we go. Players number equals convert .2int32. So we're using the convert package to do this. Console.readline. Okay. And then we've got this for int countdown equals players number count down is less than or equal to 0. Countdown minus minus. Okay, and then we have console dot right right line $, count down equals count down and then we've got this. Okay, so she's run that and she gets this error. CS0103, the name countdown does not exist in the current context. Okay, so let's figure out why that is and what we can do about it. Okay, so we will go through this programmatically and figure out what we have here. All right, so we've got this variable player's number is an integer and it's been defined right here. Okay, then we're printing to the console.write, enter a number between 1 and 10. Okay, all right, then we're taking this console.read line and we're converting it to an integer and saving it in player's number. All right, now what do? We've got an open bracket and a closed bracket here, and inside of that we have our for loop. So we've got for int countdown equals player's number. So the idea is to assign player's number to countdown. Then we're checking to see if countdown is less than or equal to 10. Okay, and if it is, or less than or equal to 0, and if it is, we're gonna count down minus minus. And then we have this end of statement here, and then we've got a new statement, console.writeLine, and then we're using this to indicate that we've got variables in the string. Countdown equals, and then we got this variable countdown, and then end the statement, and we close the brackets, and that's it. Okay, so let's take a look at, there's a few things here that we wanna see. The main one that's causing a headache for you is going to be this right here. So for any loop that you have, doesn't require a semicolon at the end because it's not a statement. We're placing the code that we want to do within a loop. So we don't need to end it like a statement. What we actually want to do is have some kind of code for this to execute and then end that statement with a semicolon. Okay, so I can actually just delete this semicolon right here and we can run it again, and you'll see that it's actually going to run now. Okay, so enter a number between 1 and 10. Now there's still a couple more problems here, and we'll take a look at that as well. So if I type in, let's say I type in 4, all right, nothing happens. So why does nothing happen? Okay, let's figure that out. So what are we doing here? Well, we've got this nice little statement here. Then we've got these brackets, but these brackets don't go with anything. So they're just segmenting our code. These brackets can be removed and it would not change the code in any way. Okay. So what's actually happening is that this what's actually happening, you added them in desperation. Yeah, that's great. That's fine. So we do like to have brackets, but again, this right here is not a statement. This is a loop. So we can use those brackets inside the loop to tell the loop what code we want to write. So you could have done this, and then that will put anything inside these in this for loop. Okay, now in this case you don't actually need it because you've only got one statement, so it's just going to look for the next semicolon and run whatever's there. That's why when you put a semicolon here, it actually ended the for loop, and that was it, because it's looking for this semicolon at the end. But in this case, we don't need the brackets because we already have this. Just one line. We don't have more than one line, so we don't actually need these. But this is good. It's good practice to put these anyway because it makes your code easier to read. Okay, so we'll leave those there for now. But let's look at the logic of this for loop, because there's a reason why it didn't count down, and that's because we're actually not asking it to do the right thing here. So what we have right now is we've got players number equal to countdown, which is great. We've created an integer that only exists in this for loop, by the way. So if I try to, this was the problem that you were running into. If I establish a variable inside this for loop, it only exists as long as this for loop is here, which is great for something called garbage collecting. You get rid of stuff in your memory that you don't need anymore, and that way you're not keeping a bunch of garbage around that you're not going to use later. So if I define an integer inside of here, then it's going to go away when the for loop is over. So if I try to call countdown, if I try to print countdown over here, console.writeLine countdown, this isn't going to work, and it's actually red. Countdown does not exist in the current context, and the reason for that is this gets thrown in the trash as soon as the for loop is over. Okay, that's just that doesn't necessarily help with this in particular, but that's why you were having trouble before. It was actually ending the for loop and throwing this away, and then you were trying to call it, and it was like, I don't know what this is. This doesn't exist anymore. Okay. So anyway, we've established this countdown integer, which is good. We're not modifying player's number. We're actually modifying a different integer, and then we're asking the for loop to run if this integer that we've just established is less than or equal to 0, which would mean it would have to be negative in order for this for loop to run. So I could run this right now, and I could say -7. Oops. -7. Where's that? Come on. And now it's going to count down forever because it's always going to be less than or equal to 0. Okay. So what we actually want to do is, and this is just a typo, I understand, but I want us to think about the way that this for loop works. Because this is very important when you're working with for loops to understand exactly how the for loop works. So you've got something here. This is pretty much anything you could put right here. This will execute at the start of the for loop, and it will only execute then. Oh, look at that. She's done it. Okay, so this will only execute at the start of the for loop and never again. This has to be a true or false thing. This has to return true or false. So this is a Boolean value. And then this will execute every time the for loop runs at the end of the for loop. Okay? So that's what that does. That's all that is. But typically what you have is you've got an integer. You're checking that integer to see what it is, and then you're doing something with that integer, adding 3 or multiplying or whatever, and then checking it again. So that's the purpose of this. Yeah, I mean, you basically had a couple of, well, you had a typo, and then you had the misunderstanding about where the semicolon's supposed to go on the for loop, and just without those two little issues, your code was actually going to work. So it's always, that's something to bear in mind when you're troubleshooting code. Just the tiniest little thing. These computers, they just do exactly what you tell them, and they need you to tell them in a very specific way. So even the tiniest little typo or whatever, it's going to ruin your code. So it's always, now modern IDEs will help you figure out what's wrong, and they'll even say, hey, I think you meant to do this, and then it'll just fix it for you. But we're using LinkPad that doesn't really do that. and that's kind of on purpose, because we don't want our IDE writing code for us while we're learning. We want to be able to make mistakes. Okay, so you made some very minor mistakes that kind of broke your code, but we were able to easily fix them, and now we got working code. So if I run this right now, and I type in 7, it's going to count down 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay, and that was the puzzle. All right, so let's look up at, you were writing something, let's see. You were wondering what the difference between console.write and console.writeLine was. Okay, so we can demonstrate that actually right here. Okay, so you've got console.write here, and take a look at how that output came out. So if I type here 8, notice that this says enter a number between 1 and 10, countdown equals 8. And then it goes to the next line. Countdown equals 7, equals 6, equals 5, equals 4, blah, 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 all the way down to 0. But each one of these is on its own line, whereas this one ends up in the same place as the one before. So the difference between write and WriteLine is that WriteLine ends the string with a new line character, which adds another line to the output. So if I run this again, now if I type in 7, it's going to start here, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. It's not going to put it here. So the only real difference between console.WriteLine and console.write is that console.WriteLine automatically puts a new line character, which we can actually add ourselves. So I could type this, and this is an escape. Basically, this means a new line. That's what that means. So, oops. Except I'm reverting back to Java apparently. Hold on. Why am I blanking? Why doesn't that work? Wait. Wait. That should work. Okay. Too many languages fills the broth. Yeah, I don't know why that doesn't work. But actually that's not even what it's doing. It's not even doing that. It's adding environment dot new line. Oop. Wait, is it new environment dot new line? Now I'm confusing myself. I think it is. I'm pretty sure it is. It's adding environment.new line to the end. Why is this acting weird? Run again. Yeah, there we go. So this is actually an adding, whatever you type in here when you say WriteLine, it's just adding this right here to the end, which is just moving the text to another line. So I could say 7 here and see, that's what it's doing. So it really, there's no huge difference between write and WriteLine. WriteLine's just automatically adding that new line environmental variable to it. So I don't know why it wasn't letting me do this /n. I'll have to think about that, because I'm pretty sure you could do that. I'm almost positive. Maybe it has to be formatted. No, that can't be right. I don't know. Anyways, you can use environment.newline, and it's the same thing. All right. So that's good. That's what we got here. Let's take a look at, I'm assuming you haven't worked on the second one. So let's take a look at that. Puzzle 2 was modify the number guessing game to limit the number of attempts to 5 and display a game over message if the user fails. Okay, so we actually had, let's see, where did we have that? Oh, I've gone too far. Is it here? Oh yeah, there's the mini lab number guessing game, but I don't actually have the code in the PowerPoint, so that's fine. So we're gonna modify yesterday's, or last week. Man, what is it with me and yesterday? We're gonna modify last week's guessing game. So here's what we're gonna do. The guessing game started with a while loop. So it's actually a do while loop. So we're gonna say do. Let me do this. Do, and then we'll say console dot write line, enter a number, enter a guess between 0 and 10. There we go. Okay, enter a guess between 0 and 10. And then we actually need a variable up here. So we need int player guess. Okay. I guess we don't actually need this, technically. I put it in the chat. Oh, I did. There it is. Oh wait, that's birth year. What? Where did I put it? Here it is. Okay, yeah, we're gonna take this copy. Oh, we had to do a random number as well. Okay, there we go. There it is. Thank you. That sped things up quite a bit. I knew I had it somewhere. All right. So we've got this guessing game, and the way this guessing game works is we've got a random number that we're creating. Yes, thank you. That was great. We got this random number that we're generating by creating a random object and then assigning random not next 1 to 11, so that's anything between 1 and 10 to number. And then we've got the guess int, which is what they're gonna guess. Okay, then we got this do while loop, so we're gonna do console.writeLine, please guess a number between 1 and 10 inclusive. Guess equals int.parse console.readline, which is just another way of doing the convert.toInt32. It just reads some text, and if there's a number in there, it returns an integer. Okay. Then we're saying if the guess is greater than a number, it's too high. Else, if it's less than a number, it's too low. And if it's none of those, then they must have guessed it. Okay, the number was number. All right, and then we're gonna continue to run this over and over and over again until number is not the same as guess. Okay, because this number is the established number they need to guess, and this is what they've guessed. So that should get you to continue to play this over and over and over again. So let's take a look. So if I come in here and it says please guess a number between 1 and 10 inclusive, and I'm going to say 5. That's too high, so I'm going to say 3. That's too high, so I'm going to say 2. And that was it. Okay, I guessed it. It was 2. Woo! Woo! All right. So now, how do we modify this? We're going to modify it. Oops. We're going to modify it by closing out the slideshow so that no one can see. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Okay. We're going to modify it by limiting the number of attempts to 5 and displaying game over if the user fails. Okay. So how are we going to do that? Well, we've got a few ways of doing that. So let's look at our options. All right. Let's close this. Now, right now, if I were to modify what is already here, I have a do while loop. So I can actually just use what's already here and guess this. Okay. So what do I want to do? Well, I need a tries integer. Right? I need tries. And tries is going to be equal to 0. Okay, there's 0 tries so far. And then this is going to run. And then at the end of all this, we want to say tries plus plus. Okay. All right. So that at the end of this was our try. We've got, this means increase tries by 1. So we go to tries equals 1 at the end of this do. All right. So here we want, when we go back through and the number isn't equal, we're going to run all this again, and that's going to be try number 2. And then it's going to run through again, 3, 4, and then they're going to try 5 times. And on 5, we want to say, stop doing this. Okay? So how do we do that? Well, we can use our AND operator. Okay? So we're going to say the number is not the guess amount. They didn't guess it right. And, okay, tries is greater than or equal to 5. Okay. Now this is what we would call a magic number in programming. I've just unilaterally decided that 5 is going to be the number here. The better way to handle this is actually to come up here and say, I'm going to say const, which means constant constant int, and then I will say max tries, and then I'm going to equal that to 5. And now I can come down here and say max tries, right? So this is something that y greater than or not, and not, oh, you're right. Look at that. Yeah, we want it to be less than max tries because we want this to run again. That's a good catch. That's right. So we're actually checking to see if we want to do it again, and we want to do it again if tries is less than our max tries. Okay. Yeah, that was a good catch. Thank you. So I've set a constant, which means this can't be modified. It's always going to be whatever I type here. And this makes it easier for me to... I was just testing you. Yeah. Just testing you. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Nope. We all make mistakes. And that's what I was talking about before, you know? Sometimes you get in your head and you type the wrong thing and you got to go back and fix it. So it happens to all of us. All right. So in that case... we've got this constant, which means it just means I'm making this integer variable, but I'm not going to change it at all. And this allows me to change it here. And then if I want to do max try, if I want to use this throughout the code, I can. And it's going to be a constant. This also affects how it gets created in the compiler, but that's not a discussion for today. Okay, so we're checking. Is it equal to guess? No. Okay. Is it less than the number of tries? Yes. Perfect. Okay. What happens when I finish this while loop? Well, I can say if tries is greater than or equal to 5, then we'll say, actually, I don't even have to say that, do I? All I have to do is say if number not equals guess, then console dot write line game over. Okay. And then I could say else, this wasn't part of the puzzle, but we're gonna do it anyway. Else console dot write line, you win. Okay. There we go. So let's try this out. Guess number between 1 and 10 inclusive. Okay, we're gonna guess 5. Too low. We're gonna guess 7. Too low. We're gonna guess 9. You win. Okay. So let's try it again. And we're gonna lose this time. We're gonna guess 5. 5. 5. Okay, we've guessed 1, 2, 3 times. 4 times. 5 times. Game over. Okay? Does everybody understand how we got here? The logic behind it? Do we have any questions? Are there any questions about anything regarding the puzzle? If there are no questions, then we'll move on. But I love to take questions because I want to make sure you guys are keeping up before I just hit you with the fire hydrant, because that's kind of what I do in these classes. I'm just opening up the fire hydrant for you to drink out of, and you get what you get. And anything you don't understand, we'll discuss it and see where we need to go. So that helps me give you as much information as I can on a specific topic, and then break down the things that you don't understand so that we can discuss them and you can understand them. So that's why I cover so much, and that's why I always want you guys to have questions. All right, so yes, that's a good question, Pratchety. Else if and else. Okay, so there is this concept of else and else if, and what's the difference? All right, so let me wipe out this, and we'll just do a simple. We'll do a simple thing here to demonstrate it. So I've got. I'll say int I equals 5. Okay. All right. So we got I is equal to 5. And we're going to say if I is greater than 3, then do a thing. We'll say console dot write line I plus is greater than 3. Okay. Then I can say else console dot write line I is not greater than 3. Okay, so let's run that. So we should get 5 is greater than 3. Okay, if I do 2, I should get 2 is not greater than 3. Okay? Now, what if this is not enough? What if I also want to check to see if it's equal? Okay? This right here, well, first, let me explain what this is doing. This is saying, is this thing true? Oops. Is this thing true? If this is true, do this thing. Okay? If not, okay, if this is not true, then do this thing. Okay? That's what if and else means. But there are cases where I have 3 things that I want to check for. Okay, so I need to use else if. So in this case, I'm going to say else if, and this gives me the option to check another thing. So it's going to say, if this is not true, then if this is true, do this thing. So we'll say if I is less than 3, let me do that. If I is less than 3, that's too much space. Console.writeLine, I is not greater than 3, but I'm going to say is less than 3. Now, because I did if here, I could do another else here. Else console.writeLine, I is equal to 3, right? Because it's not greater than and it's not less than, so it must be equal. All right, and I've missed a capitalization there. All right, there we go. So 2 is less than 3. Okay, it did that. But what happens if I set this as 3? 3 is equal to 3. Okay, so what this is saying is it's checking this. Is this true? 3 is greater than 3? No, that's not true. Okay, then in that case, is this true? I is less than 3. No, 3 is not less than 3. Okay, so if neither of these things are true, then I'm going to come down here and do this. Okay, that's what it's doing. All right, so that's the difference between if and else if. Else just says, if this is false, then we're doing this, period. That's it. Okay? Doesn't matter. But if I say else if, it's going to say, if this isn't true, then I need to check and see if this is true. And if that's not true either, then I'm going to do this. And I can else if my way down through here forever. So I could say else if, else if, else if, else if. But if I'm doing that, I'm going to want to use a switch, which is what we talked about last week. So would else always come after else if? So no, you actually don't need this else. So you can do if, and it doesn't need an else. It just won't do this thing, and then that's it. If I put else here, it'll do this thing. But if I say else if, then it'll check another statement and do that. And then I don't need else here. It just won't do anything. So the question of whether I need if else is, or if I need an else after my if statement or else if statement, the question is whether or not I have more code to execute. Okay, so if I didn't care, okay, if I didn't care about this equal to 3, then this would do nothing. So it would output nothing. Because there's no code. It's not this and it's not this, so it just won't do anything at all. Okay? You could use else as a failsafe for your code to tell if something isn't working properly. Yeah, I mean you can definitely use it to you could use it to print out a failure. Like if this is supposed to be 3, if this is always supposed to be 3, then I can come in here and say equals 3, and then I can go in here and say I'm just checking to see if it's 3 because it's supposed to always be 3. Okay, if something's happened to where this isn't 3, I'm gonna want to write console.write right line. It's not 3. Something is terribly wrong here. Okay, and I could debug my code that way. So if this ends up not being 3, then I could tell myself that it's not 3. And that's a way that you can debug with else. But else is useful in lots of different situations. When you're just trying to run code based on whether something's true or false. Because if I don't have this else here, then if I put 3, it's going to output 3 is greater than 3. It's not 3. Something is terribly wrong here. Okay. So I want to use this. I want to use this to write 2 different things. If this is true, I'm going to write whatever this is. If this is false, then I'm going to execute whatever code is in this as after this else statement. So that's the use of if else. All right. Okay. Any other questions? Bring them on. Bring them on. And we're actually going to talk about fail-safes today. Something very powerful that you can easily abuse. Okay. All right. So let's move on to the actual lesson for today. So we'll close this slideshow and we will pull up today's slideshow. Stop doing that. Okay. All right, let me pull up this. All right, methods and error handling in C# is what we're going to talk about today. Writing reusable code and handling errors. All right, so methods. Methods are super, super cool. All right, and we're going to talk about them. All right, so what is a method? What are methods? A method is a reusable block of code that performs a specific task. All right, so why use methods? It organizes code into smaller manageable parts, and we'll demonstrate that so you know what that means. It reduces repetition, so I don't have to write the same code over and over and over again. And it improves readability and maintainability. It makes it easier for people to read and work on the code later on. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at methods. Here we go. We're going to define and call a method. So here's what we're going to do in LinkPad. Okay. Up here under language C# statements, we're going to level up. Okay. We're going to level up by going to C# program. Okay. We're going to expose some of the guts of what we've been doing. This has always been here, by the way. This has always been here. But today, we're actually going to show it. So every program which is executed, in C# has some sort of initialization or execution method. The main one here is going to be main. So there is a built-in thing in C# that goes to look for this main method. Okay, this is a method. And we're gonna look at what this means, but this main method, all you need to know for right this second is that C# comes in and it looks for this main method, and it's anything that's written in here is what it's gonna do. Okay, it's gonna go from this bracket to this bracket and just do it. I can write other methods out here and it's not gonna do them. Okay, not unless I ask it to. It's only gonna do what's in this main method. Now, a lot of times people will just use this main method to call another method, which is fine, and it can make your code more readable. But just know that your C# is looking for this main method to run stuff out of here. Okay? All right. This main method is what we've been using this whole time. So if I'm in statements here, basically this text right here is just getting injected into the middle of this main method. All right. So this is the do stuff. So if I do my console.writeLine hello world, if I run this, bam, there you go. That's all it is. All right, so let's take a look at what we can do. So how do we define a method? So you can see here we've got syntax for method. We've got the main method here. Oops. Hello. And then we've got this method. So let's do that. By the way, we'll talk about what this void means in a second. But this is very important. The void is very important. All right, so let's come down here and we're going to make a new method. Void hello. Okay, this is going to be the hello method. And I can write inside this hello method, I can write console.writeLine hello world. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I nearly peed myself. Thanks for hopping in.
Wait, why?
It was so loud and I wasn't expecting it.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Yes. Welcome in. We are talking about methods. It was a jump scare, yeah. All right. And by the way, guys, I don't mind if you guys unmute during this and want to ask questions or talk about stuff. That's fine with me. So don't feel like you got to stay on mute. But also just typing in the chat's fine too. We are being recorded though, so if you don't want to be recorded, then don't open your mic. All right, so let's take a look at this. If I run this right now, what do you think is gonna do? What do you think it's gonna do? I'm gonna see if anybody's got a guess. Coffee roasting for IMAX theater. Pratchety, you're our resident coder at the moment. Can't help my roaster is loud. So, Pratchety says it's gonna write hello world. Okay? It's not going to run hello. Okay? So let's see what happens. We get nothing. All right? So why is that? If you remember what I said earlier, it's looking for this main method. Okay? So, Zach, you were right, but you were right for the wrong reasons. Okay? And we're going to talk about that. So, as I said before, it's looking for this main method, and it's going to do what's in here. And anything outside of that, it's not going to do it. It's not going to do it until I ask it to do it. Okay? Yeah, right. It's not in main. So how do I get this to run? I want to do this. I have it here. Come on, code. Do what I want. All right. The way I'm going to do this is I've got to call hello from here. That's right. Call it in main. So we're going to say hello. Boom, just like that. And that's all I need. Now when I run it, hello world, there it is. Okay? So if you remember, we've actually used quite a few methods in the past. So like the it.parse that we used that read text. You feel like you're in uni. If you use that int.parse, it's actually a method where you put in the string and then it gives you an int. Okay. Hello. Yes, Professor Adam of Smashers. That's me. I'm not a PhD though, so you guys, I guess if I show up late, you could just leave. All right, so the same thing's happening here. We're calling hello, and we're just defining what that means. So there's built-in methods that we can use, or we can define our own, just like this. So let's talk about things like... You showed up earlier than I expected. Yeah, I started class an hour before you expected it to start because you're on a different time zone. Or a different... Like, y'all aren't doing the daylight savings yet. All right, so let's take a look at what we've got here. Let me run this slideshow again. Stop doing that. All right, so we've got some key points. It's defined using a return type, a name, and a code block. Okay, we will talk about that. So let's look at, we've got the code here, so let's take a look at it. Okay, this is what we've defined. Hello. This is what we defined here. Void say hello, console.writeLine hello world. Okay, that's what it's doing. Now we define this with a return type, and this return type is void. Okay, void is a very special name when you're making methods, and void means that it does not return anything. It returns void. So why is that important? Well, we need to look at other ways that we can define a method so we can see why we might want to put void there. So let's go back to our thing here. Yes, I like to talk to my computer. I can put anything here that is a type. Okay? So I could put int hello here. So this could be an integer. But this is upset because this doesn't actually return anything. I need some way to tell this what to put in this int. Okay? I do that by doing returns. So I can come down below here and I could say return 3. And now if I print this console.writeLine hello, which I can just do it just like that, it's going to run this console.writeLine, and then it's going to return 3 back up to here, and it's going to print out 3. What happens if you don't void main? You need to void main. Just put it that way. That's something that we can talk about later on. Main is a very, very special method. So if you have questions about main, we could talk about them later. But just in the scope of this class, I don't want to get too bogged down into main because it is a special method that it's not gonna extrapolate. The information that I tell you about main isn't gonna extrapolate through the other methods. So we can cover that separately. But for now, you just need to know that main is void. It doesn't return anything, and it's gonna run something here. Okay, so this is cool and all. I can do this, but like, what's the point, right? What's the point of doing this? I could have just put this up here and done console.writeLine hello world, console.writeLine 3 up here, and that would have done it. And I don't need this method at all. So why am I creating methods? Well, there's a few reasons. One is readability, of course. So having it do this is fine, but also, yes, reusability is another reason. So let me get rid of this int. We're gonna say void again because I don't want it to output 3 all the time. Okay, I'm gonna come up here and say console.writeLine hello, but I want it to write twice. All right, so I'm gonna add a space in here, and then I'm gonna say hello again. Except this is void, so this actually needs to be a string. I've gotten ahead of myself. Well, okay, we'll leave it void. I just need to do this differently. We'll say hello, and then hello again. Now if I do it twice, it's gonna print it twice, and I didn't have to write this over and over again. This now just means this, and I can do it as many times as I want. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so what other uses are there for this? Well, there's this parentheses. Okay, this actually means something. Right now there's nothing in here because this isn't taking in any arguments. An inventory of code you can refer to, yes. But also, if we look at this, this is empty. I don't need to leave this empty. I can accept information in the parentheses and use it in the code. So let's take a look at that. Let's say I don't actually want to do this. I don't want it to say hello world every time. I want it to say, I want to take in someone's name. Okay? So let's, in the main method, we'll do a string name equals console.read. Okay? Wait, int. Wait, what? Okay, that was weird. You're watching, you just can't hear. If you type something in the parentheses, will it say different words other than world, or am I way off? So just the way we have it now, it's not going to say something different. But I will show you how we can make it say something different right here. So we're going to take in whatever's written in the console. I don't know why it was saying int here. Something screwy with that. Okay. But we've got this hello here, and I'm only going to do one this time. But I want hello to print out this. I want it to print out hello name, right? But I want to take this name in. Let me put the $sign here so it knows it's a variable. But I don't have this variable, and I want to get it from here. Okay, I want to do it in the main method because I may want to change this name at some point and then say hello again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put name here. I'm going to send name over to hello. Oh, but wait, something's wrong. How come this is red? This is red because we haven't told hello that it can accept information. It doesn't know it can accept strings. So we need to come down here and say string name in here. Okay, now this works. If I run this and I say my name is Adam, it's gonna say hello Adam. Okay, we are passing this name string onto this method. Okay, and it's just taking it and running with it. All right, and I can do any number of things. I could say string name int age. Okay, and then I could come up here and say string or not a string, int age equals int dot parse console dot read line. And then now it's saying, well, hold on, wait a minute. Oh, wow, that was not intended. Wait a minute, how come there's a red line here? Because this has to take everything that's up here. Okay, I have to send it everything it asks for. So I need to add age here. I can't just send name, I have to add age. Now I could say, hello name, you are age years old. Okay, now if I run this, my name is Adam and I am 33. Hello Adam, you are 33 years old. And I need to separate them. Yes. All right. So this comma tells me where this variable ends and the next one begins. Now, what if I don't always want to take the age? There's a way around that. I can define a default here. And the way that you define a default is by doing equals and saying 0. Okay? Now, I don't need this. I could just type in name, and it's going to assume that my age is 0 because I haven't said anything. Okay, so in this case, I actually want to do an if statement. Well, this is going to be terrible because of the way I've done this, so let me change this. And I'm just going to get rid of age entirely. Okay. Now, I could ask... Well, no. Let me not get rid of age because I need to use it later. Equals 33. Okay, we'll do that. And we're not using age. We're just using name. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to check. I'm going to say if age is not equal to 0, then do this thing. And I'm going to say else I'm going to say console dot write line name, please tell me your age. Okay, so if I run this, it's going to say, I'm going to say Adam. I'm going to say, Adam, please tell me your age. Okay. But if I come in here and I add age to this constructor, to the arguments, and I run it and I say, Adam, it's going to say, hello, Adam, you are 33 years old. Okay. So this is, you can see that I have the ability to find something here as a default in case it doesn't get sent in. Okay. There's another way of doing this. And that is by changing, let's say I want to do different code. I want to do completely different code. This is kind of ugly. Okay. I actually want to do completely different code. Depending on whether or not they give me the age. Well, I could do something called an override. Okay. So we'll make this string name int age. Okay. Then I can come down here and I could say, I could do it again. Void hello string name. And then inside of here, oops, I could say console dot write line. I need to get rid of this so you can actually see. Console dot write line name, please tell me your age. Now I could do this, Or I could do this. Hello, name. I almost launched at poker in this call just for the lulz. So, let's run that and see what that does. Oh, I have forgotten one them. All right, there we go. What is happening? Wow, that was really long. All right, so I can say, poker, I hardly know her. Excuse me. So we've got two different hellos. All right. See how this works? I can do these. I can do both of these. Now, if I were to say string name, int age, this is going to be a problem because this already exists. And actually, if I did int anything here, int blah, it's still mad. Okay, I can't do two of the same, but as long as the stuff in here is different, I could do it. So I could have a string here, string stuff, and that would just work. Now, I mean, it's not gonna work up here because I've got to add another string. And I don't have to pass variables in here. I can pass just regular literals. Blah it is best int. Yes. So I know this is very what I'm talking about here is very like high fire hydrant-y. Okay, I understand that. There's a lot here. There's a lot of info here, but I'm covering all of this so that we can kind of get our minds wrapped around the idea of methods. Okay, they're very useful, and they're useful for many different reasons. Let's look back at our thing here. So they're defined using a return type, which we know is either void, int, string, any type of literal, or any type, not literal, any type. Then we've got a name. So our code's name was hello, but you could call it anything. Preferably something useful, something readable. Void means no return value, so it's not looking for a return. Now you can do returns. You can do returns in void strings. So I could come down here and say return. Okay? And that actually works. But that does something interesting. So I could say console.writeLine. This code is not executed. Okay? It's already given me a, hey, this is not good. Now I can run this. This is a green thing. It's a warning, but it's not actually stopping me from running the code. So I can run this, and it's going to give me a little warning here. Type Adam. But notice this code is not executed, was never executed. And that's because I've put this return here. And anytime you return, that's the end of the code. Does that make sense? With a couple of exceptions. Now, why would I ever want to do this? Why would I want to have a return in here? Like, why wouldn't I just let it be over and stop? Well, I could come in here and I could say if name equals Adam. Oops. If name equals Adam, then we're going to return. This code is not executed if the user's name is Adam. Okay. Now, if I run that, it's going to ask me, Adam, it's going to say, please tell me your age, blah, blah, blah. But if I put in Floretti, it's going to say this code is not executed if the user's name is Adam. Okay? Because this return statement was never run. So that's why I might want to do return in a void. Because even though I don't have anything to send back, this ends the code immediately. And that's the use of that. Okay? What does return do? That's a great question. So let's talk about what return does. We will start over with these methods and we'll do a new method. Actually, let's go to the next slide because I think this next slide is going to cover it. Okay, the next one actually doesn't, but we will. The one after that does. So methods have to be called to execute. We showed that the main method gets called automatically, but the other method doesn't get called until it's executed, or until it doesn't get executed until it's called. So let's go to the next one. Methods with parameters. Okay, so we talked about that. We've added a string name to this void greet user, and then we're passing that name into this console.writeLine. And again, there we go. Now you can read it. So in this case, greet user Alice, greet user Bob. If I put in Alice here, it comes in as name, and then it plops right into there as name. Hello, Alice, or hello, Bob. So what happens if we pass different names? If we passed Jacob, it would say Jacob, right? What happens if we don't pass a parameter? Well, we saw that it just doesn't work. Okay, we would have to have a default here to be able to not pass a parameter, or we'd have to have one called void greet user and then just close parentheses and have its own code. Okay, so those are a couple of options that we have. But if I just don't pass anything here, if I just say greet user parentheses and don't put anything inside, it's not going to run at all. It's going to give an error. All right, next. Methods with return values. Okay, so this is what we were talking about. This one, int add. So this is an int, which means it needs to return an int. Add int A, int B, return A plus B. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So we will change this void main. We're gonna do int sum. Come on, sum equals add 5 3, and then console dot writeLine $sign sum, and then we're going to put the sum in there, and then we will close quotes, close bracket, now close the parentheses, and end the statement. All right, so now we need this add, because right now add doesn't exist, so let's make it. We've got int add, we're going to add int A, and you can actually do int B. Oh no, you actually, no, not in a constructor, just kidding. Int A and B, then we will add some code to this. So right now this is mad because we haven't returned a value. Okay, we need to return a value, so we're going to return A plus B. Okay, so what this is going to do is I'm going to say sum equals, and then I'm going to do the add method, and add is 5 plus 3. It's going to return this addition, so it needs to return an integer. It's going to return 5 plus 3, which is 8. And then whatever this is an integer, it's going to go into this sum int. So whatever gets returned here ends up here, because we've said sum equals whatever that is. Then we could say console.writeLine sum, and then we're printing out the sum. Okay, so if I run this, what? Name A does not exist in the current context. Name B does not exist in the current context. What is going on? That's definitely wrong. Why? Okay, I'm getting compile errors. Something has gone horribly wrong. It does exist. It's right here. Okay, it worked there. I don't know. That was weird. Weird glitch. Hello Alice, hello Bob. I'm your cherry bomb. You guys are bad influence. Having a stroke trying to say Anna's last name. All right. So I don't know why I'm getting compile errors, but it is what it is. It's working now, so whatever. So let's take a look at this. I've returned A plus B. This return has to return something of this type. Okay. So I can't return hello world here. Okay, it's not gonna let me do that. I have to return whatever I define up here. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to A plus B. So that's what return does. It sends back whatever is after the return. It sends it back as the resolution of this entire method. So this, imagine replacing this with 8. And that's actually what the compiler would do. So since I know that this is 5 and this is 3, this is actually just going to make this equal to 8 before I even run the program. Yes, correct. Nice clack.
Why did it unmute me? I've literally been muted this entire time.
I don't know, but I nearly peed myself again. That roaster is so loud.
I can't help it. I'm so sorry.
Depends on my checklist. Yeah, I'm gonna have to. So let's go back to our lovely slide here. So methods can return values using return. Okay, the return type must match the method declaration. Okay, are we good on that? Do we have any questions? I feel like this has been a lot of stuff. Why is int add but also int a and int b? Okay, so yeah, let's talk about that because that can be confusing. This right here, this int, is determining it's telling my code up here what to expect from this. So when I put int add here, then when I reference add up here, this one knows for a fact that it's gonna get an integer. Okay, and it's gonna be very mad if it doesn't. Because we've already told it, hey, if you call this method, you're gonna get an integer here. Okay, that's what this does. And then we're forced to return an integer back because we've called it an int. These right here are arguments. I can put anything in here. It doesn't matter what's written here. This right here is whatever I want to take in. So I could make this a string A, string B. There we go. And then I would have to Discord hates me. Next is gonna turn on my cam. Next, I would have to make this into a string. These would have to be strings. Okay. Then I could
What's
come
up,
in here.
dude?
Then I could come in here and say int dot parse a plus int dot parse b, and this would actually do the same thing. So this would equal 8, and this would return an int. Okay, so your finger slipped, you promise? Yeah, sure. Yeah, this would definitely be more complicated, but this allows me to send in 5 and 3, and the usefulness of this is I could actually say console dot read line and console dot read line, and then it would ask me, it would let me type in, so I could say 5 and 3, and it would give me 8. Okay. Florette joined. Instant chaos. Yeah. Immediate chaos. Because it's always a string. Right. This is always a string. So, that's the usefulness of that. That's the difference between the arguments and this right here, which is telling the code what to expect, and this is telling the code what to send over. Okay? And then we always have to return something of this type. All right. Let's move on. And again, we need to swap our thing. Okay. So, method overloading we discussed, but I want to show you something specific about this. So there's a couple of ways that we're able to overload here. So in this case, they've got, let's start over. They've got int multiply int a, there we go, int a, int b, a times b, and then double multiply double a double b a times b. And then we've got void main and they're just calling it console dot right line multiply to 3, and then console dot right line multiply 2.5 3. Okay, so let's take a look at this, because this is different. This is different than what we saw before. Your brain is overcoded. Well, I can totally understand that. We're actually almost done, so stick in there. All right, so this is a method. This is also a method, but it doesn't look like a method. All right, it doesn't look like the method that we've seen before. we have this little symbol here, which looks like equals then greater than. It's actually like an arrow. It doesn't look like a method. You're right, it doesn't. This right here is just what we call syntax sugar. Syntactical sugar. It really means, this right here really means do this that's what that means. Syntax sugar. Yep. It's just a nice way of writing it. Give me some sugar, I am your neighbor. This is a compact way of writing this. Well, actually, it would be return this. So that's what this means. It means return whatever that is. Okay? But it's short and sweet and to the point. All right. This little arrow shows up in several places in C#, but when we're talking about methods, we're going to define the method just like we would before by doing int multiply and then having the arguments, and then we're going to add this little symbol that means return whatever this statement says. Okay, that's all that means. This method returns this statement, and this only works if you've got a single line of code that you need to send over, a single statement that you need to send. This will work. Okay. All right, so we've got int multiply and double multiply. These are both named the same thing, but if I send it to ints, then it's going to do integer math. If I send it to doubles, or in this case, a double and an int, which is going to be interpreted as a double because of the way that doubles and ints work. This is going to run the to double side. It's going to run this math, and this one's going to run this math. So I'm going to get 2.5. Wait, what? Hold on. What's... Okay. Oh, okay. I know what happened. If I have something highlighted, it only does the code that I've highlighted. That's the problem. So I could just do this, and it'll give me 6. I didn't know that actually about LinkPad, and that explains why we've been having syntax problem or compile problems, because I've been highlighting things. So that's it. If you highlight something, it only runs that code. So that's very good for debugging. But in this case, we want to run all our code. All right. So there we go. Multiply. We've got an int version and a double version, and it would actually, so I could say int multiply here, and it would return an integer. Now I can't do this because these are doubles. I would have to parse them into an int, which I can do by saying int and then, oops, putting these in parentheses. So that will take whatever result is here and turn it into an int, which is 7 because it drops the 0.5 off the end. So it doesn't matter what this is. What matters, what it's looking for is these arguments. Do the arguments match what's inside of here? Okay. That's what it's looking for. And by the way, I could make this an int, and this would still work. Because 3 is an int and a double, but that is probably going to confuse you more, so just leave that where it is. All right, let us take a look at our next slide. We're almost done, guys. error handling. All right, this is the last topic for today. And error handling is quite a bit simpler than methods. Okay, error handling takes place when we want to do something, but we're not sure if it's going to cause a real problem. Okay, there are things that we can do that will destroy our program, and we can fix that by doing error handling. So what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. So I'm going to change this back to statement, and I'm going to say int I equals, and I'm going to say int dot parse, and then I'm going to do console dot reline. Okay, now I'm going to print that out. Console dot write line I'm going to print that out. So if I type in 3, it's going to do 3. Okay. Now, what happens if I type in Adam? Uh-oh. All right. Something's gone terribly wrong. What is it? Yes. Perfect. Yes, that's exactly right. Something's gone terribly wrong. What's wrong? Well, it's trying to parse an int from what I sent it, and I did not send it an int. I didn't send it an integer. I sent it my name, and it's very mad, and it broke my code, and the code no longer works. Okay? So if I hand this code over to some random person, they can type whatever they want in there, and if they don't type an integer, it's going to break, and they're going to be mad because their code is going to break, and their program's going to crash, and everyone's going to cry. Okay, we don't want everybody to cry. We want to fix this. So what do? Well, we can use something called a try catch. Okay. So let's do that. How does that work? Well, we could say try. You cry over programs? Yeah, absolutely. Who doesn't? Okay. Try. And I'm going to put what I want to try in the try. And then I'm going to catch. Okay. But I need to catch something specifically. So in this case, this is a format exception that we've got, and you could see that here, format exception. So we're gonna catch format exception, and we'll call the exception E. Okay, that's just its variable name. Now we need to do something. We need to do something if that has had an exception. So what do? Well, we want to say console.writeLine. You need to enter an integer. Okay. So now if I run this again, and by the way, we're going to comment this out for a minute, because we'll have to do something with that in a second. Okay. So here I'm going to type in Adam, and it's going to say you need to enter an integer, and then it's going to end the program. It's not going to crash. It's not going to cry. It's just going to stop. Okay. And I'll have to run it again. Okay. So what happens if so I can actually move this up, right? I can go console.writeLine. You need to pop out, but you'll check out the rest of the VOD. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Hey, I appreciate you coming in and hanging out with us. I hope you learned something. Console.writeLine bam. Okay. So what happens here? If I say Adam It just says you need to enter an integer. It stops here because this is broken, and it doesn't run this. All right. But what happens if I want it to enter something anyway, or I want it to start over and say, hey, you need to keep trying until you do this correctly. Well, if I want it to go over and over again, I can use what? Who can tell me what's going to help me force them to try again? Does anybody know? This is feeding from last week's lesson. A loop. Yep, a loop. So how would we loop this? Because right now, let me give us some room. Right now we just have this, stop it. We have this try and catch, but it's like catching down here, and then what? That's not helping us, right? Well, we're gonna wrap this whole thing in a while loop. Now we could do a do while loop, but in this case we're just gonna do a while loop to save time. And we're gonna say while no int will be our variable, and we need to define that. So we're gonna say bool no int equals false, no, equals true, excuse me. Well, bool no int equals true, and I've actually violated one of my style rules by not using a true name that is true. So really what we want to say, bool gave int, and then we would say not, while they've not given us an int. And then this would be false. Okay, so I'm gonna fix that a little bit. All right, so then we're gonna try this. And inside this catch method, there we go. This is going to be false. We only want it to give us, we only want it to stop doing this while loop if we are able to get an int from here. Okay? So we know if it breaks through this, we've already tested this. If it's able to break through the first line of code, that means that it actually parsed an int from our output. So anything we write after that means we've gotten an int. Okay? So in this case, we're going to write gave int equals true, and then we can write the I. Okay? So what's happening here? Well, gave int is false, so it's going to start the first run of the while loop, and it's going to say try to do this, and if you can't, we're going to type you need to enter an integer. Otherwise, we're going to say this is true, and we're going to type it out. Now, it's false by default. So, if we don't get to here, it's going to go again. So, if I type, let's see what happens. Let's just see what happens. So, if I type Adam here, it's going to say, you need to enter an integer, and it's going to ask me again. And I'll type Pratchety. And it's going to say, you need to enter an integer. And then I'm going to type 13.5. You need to enter an integer. Then I'm going to type 14. And it's going to type 14. And it's going to end the program. Okay? Does that make sense? Is anybody confused about the try-catch method? We're going to talk more about it. But the basic idea is that we're trying to catch a specific exception. Okay? Now, what happens if I don't know what exception I'm catching? Like I'm debugging and I just want to find out, I want to find out what's wrong with my code. Well, for one, if I'm looking for format exception, I can type out, I can actually enter this E here. Now, I could just put E here, and then I could type Adam, and this is going to output this, and the code will still run. Okay, so it's gonna show me the exception information, and then it's still gonna let me enter more stuff. So if I type this, oh, string Adam was not in a correct format. Oh, okay. A string great was not in a correct format. Oh, I need to try again. 13, and then 13 works. Okay, so I can put this E, and this could be anything. This could be error. This could be pudding. Okay, we're just defining this as basically as a variable. Okay, and this will still work, but we use E because E just means error, and everybody knows when they look at the code and they see E, they know that's the error. Okay. But let's say we don't know what kind of error we're gonna get. There's a million things going on, and we just want to see the information from the exception. We can go here, get rid of format exception, and just do exception. Okay, and this will catch anything at all. All right, so if I do format exception, and I come in here and I say I divided by 0. Hold on. Int impossible. So now, it's impossible to divide by 0. Okay, if you've taken a math class in high school, you know this to be true. You can't divide by 0. So this is going to return an error, but it's not a format error. It's a divide by 0 error. Okay, so let's see what happens. If I type in a number, divide by 0 exception, it crashes. I can't type anything else in. My code is over. Everyone's crying. Boo-hoo. Okay? So I have a couple of options. I can either change this to be more generic by putting exception E here, and then if I run this and I say 13, it's going to give me this error. It's going to give me this exception that tells me I attempted to divide by 0, and it's going to let me try again. Okay? Because we're catching all exceptions. But the problem with that is that we may want to do something different. So in this case, we want to say format exception E, and instead of printing out the error, we just want to say console.writeLine, please enter an integer. But if it's a divide by 0 issue, divide by 0 exception E, then we want to print it out. Okay, so let's look at that. So if I put in Terry here, it's going to say please enter an integer, and it's going to start over. But if I put an integer in, it's going to move on to where I'm dividing by 0, and it's going to throw a divide by 0 exception, and then it's going to let me try again. Okay, so I can define different errors, and by the way, the name of these errors will always come up here. So if you're trying to figure out, if you're trying to get information about a specific error, if you error this out without doing a catch, it will just put it up on the screen and you can use that name. But these are all like built-in names into C#. These all mean something specific, and you can actually define your own errors as well, but we're not doing that today. Okay, so I can do that. Now, here's the other question. What happens if I want to continue running some code before I do this while loop again. Okay? If I error out and I want to run some code every time, I needed to use something called finally. Okay? So any code I put in finally is going to run every single time, whether there's an error or not. Okay, so let's get rid of this divide by 0 exception. And we're going to get rid of this thing where we're dividing by 0. We're going to read this in, and then we're either going to say, please enter an integer, or we could say console.writeLine, thanks for your entry. Okay? So what is this going to do? We know that this is a loop, and we know that we're going to try to take in an integer and write it out. But sometimes it's not an integer. Sometimes they put something else. So we want to say, please enter an integer. But we always want to tell them thank you. Whether they've written something totally wrong or whether they've done it totally right, we always want to thank them. Okay? In this case, we're going to use finally here. And if I run this and I say Adam, it's going to say, please enter an integer, thanks for your entry. And then if I type the mediocre llama, it's going to say, please enter an integer, thanks for your entry. Okay. Now if I type 12, it's going to say 12, thanks for your entry. Okay. So that's what finally does. This code always runs, no matter what. Make sense? All right. We've gone on a little long today, so I'm going to go ahead and just cover some things. Here's some common errors. Dividing by 0, which we talked about. Null references, which I can cover very quickly. So if I come in here and I say, I'm going to set a bool. I'm going to say int j, like that. Int j. And then I'm going to say console.writeLine j. Well, this is okay, so I actually need to make this a null. And then this needs to be nullable. There we go. Okay, there's a lot of stuff going on here that I won't explain today, but just know that null is a specific type of assignment, which means that there's nothing there. Okay, if that makes sense. So I can. This doesn't really make sense in the current thing because, like, why is it null? If I just won't use it if I'm going to make it null, right? But null just means nothing. There's nothing there. It's not assigned anything. It's just null. But this is useful if, for instance, I'm filling out a questionnaire, and one of the questions is skippable. So I just don't write anything. Well, that's null. If I don't write anything in the questionnaire, then I have nothing, and it's null. All right, so then it goes out as null, and I can use that to check to see if they filled it out, because it's either going to be null or it's going to be a string, right? So that's what null means. It means there's nothing at all. Now, I can't use null. I can't say write null because null doesn't exist. Okay? So let's look at that. Oh, I actually I can print null. I would need to do, I would have to do this. Hold on. J plus 3. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to get rid of this right line for now. So I'm going to try to add J and 3. I'm going to get rid of this too. I'm going to try to add J and 3, but J is null, so I can't add anything to J. So I'm going to run it. And apparently it's just going to print null. Okay. Let's see. What do I need to do? Oh, maybe I'll do this. Plus equals 3. No, still no. All right, it's not. It's hard to think of a situation where it's not just going to say null. Really, what I'd have to do is I guess I could do this. J equals 3, and then we'd say plus equals null, and that's not going to compile because it's not a nullable value type. Yeah, I mean, just know that there's not a whole lot of times where you're going to get null references. Most of the time it's going to be if you're pulling in information from like a JSON data, and it's marked as null, but you don't have a place for it to be null, and so it just doesn't work. But if you understand what null is, that's all you really need to know. Null means there's nothing there. It's not 0, it's just nothing at all. Okay? And it's not just ints that are null, it's any object can be null. Any type can be null. All right. That was confusing, but it's okay. Let me go. Maybe null isn't as empty as I thought. No, it's just no. C# is a very safe language. It tries its best not to have exceptions. I could. Oh, here's a way that I could demonstrate it. That'll actually help us. So let's go back. So instead of doing this, I'm gonna say throw null value exception. Is it not null value exception? Okay, what is it? Now I'm blanking. Null value except. Oh, it's null reference. Yeah, I should have known that. Null reference exception. Oh yeah, I have to say new. I'm kind of rusty on this for some reason. And this would be your mom is null. Okay. Can I just do that? Yeah, I can. So then then this is gonna throw an exception. Null reference exception message, your mom is null. Okay. So this throw, basically I can tell it to make an exception and just write it in somewhere. That's not something you need to know right now. It's just bear in mind that we can actually force exceptions. Exceptions are the hardest part of this whole lesson, and you don't really need to understand them that much. You just need to understand that they happen and they can destroy your code. And you want to manage them using try-catch methods or finding ways to prevent them from ever happening in the first place. Okay? We want to limit how much of this try-catch we do because we don't want sections of code to just not be executed and then later the code breaks because there's stuff just missing, and we don't know why, and we get glitches because there's like variables that don't exist or haven't been assigned properly or whatever. So we don't want to use try catch. Just like you wouldn't write your whole program and then try catch it to make sure that it never crashes, right? That would not help you at all because you'd never figure it out, and the code would never work properly. It would just end the program. Okay, so we want to use these sparingly, but there are cases where we need them, especially when we're accepting input from places where we don't know what the input is going to be. We want to use try catch. So there you go. All right, moving on. This is a long one today. Sorry about that. You guys are troopers. Try catch for error handling. We looked at try contains code that might throw exceptions. Catch handles specific exceptions. All right. Multiple catch blocks. We did that as well. You can have as many catch blocks as you want. Just make sure that it's a different exception each time. So they did format, divide by 0, and exception. Okay. They're using EX. By the way, you don't need a variable here. You just won't be able to get any information from the exception. All right, the finally block, which we talked about. Finally, you would do try, catch, finally, and finally always executes. Finally is primarily used for closing stuff. So let's say you open a file. Like you're editing a text document and you open it up and you're writing inside of it. You need to close it for it to work properly. So up here in the try, you might open a text document and close it, and you want to close it later, but you don't want to like close it at the end of the try method or the try section, the try block, because you might not ever get there, which means it would still be, the file would still be open on your computer. So you want to do it in finally. So whether there's an error or not, the file is still closed. And that's the main reason people use finally. All right, mini lab. Here we go. This is the very last thing. So we're gonna try this. I know I've blown your brains up, so this is going to be difficult. My brain is hurting too. Don't worry. But we're getting there. All right, so we're going to create a calculator that accepts 2 numbers and an operator, and we're going to use methods to perform the calculations, and we're going to handle invalid input errors. Okay. All right, here we go. So we're going to create a double. So double calculate double A, double B, and character op, which I don't know if we discussed characters very much, but we will. Oh no, am I muted? Hello? What? You should be able to hear me. It looks like you can hear me. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, can you hear me? Uh-oh. I mean, I'm looking at OBS and it's reading the thing. See. Can you hear me now? Are you able to hear me now? Hello? Oh my. Okay.
If it don't work, if it ain't broke, don't work it.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Are you able to hear me? I mean, it shows me talking. Okay, cool. All right, something weird happened with Discord. That's okay. We're back. So I got this double. Yes, Ivan. Ivan, hear you. Ivan. All right. So we're going to return up switch. Okay, so we're gonna return on a switch. This is a different way of doing switches, by the way. This is all syntax sugar plus, and then this lambda thing equals B, and then we can do. It's a while since you could hear me. Oh no, I'm sorry. A minus B. Well, that would have made learning pretty hard if you couldn't hear what I was saying. Since the null thing. Okay. Well, that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, you'll have to watch the video. Yeah, it's a good thing I'm recording. Exactly. And then the main method is gonna try catch. So we'll have to, well, okay. Yeah, we'll have to do main. Do I actually want to move this down here? And then we'll say cons. We'll have to do try catch. Try console dot right line. Calculate 0, 5 plus. Oh wait. Okay, so let's take a look at this. It definitely looks interesting. Yeah, so let's take a look at what this is doing. Also, I've totally messed something up here. Hold on. What have I done? First of all, I need to format these because this is going to drive me crazy. Okay, so we're going to try here, and then we're going to catch, and then we want to catch two different things. catch divide by 0 exception. And for that, we want to say console dot right line. You cannot divide by 0. Okay, and then we'll catch the argument exception. E, and then we'll say console dot right line E. All right, so let's take a look at this. What have I done wrong? Oh, I've forgotten that. And I did it here too. Look at that. What a goofball. Okay. So that's 5. 0 plus 5 is 5. And that's fine. So what have we done? Let's look at this code. We've got the calculate method. And this is a double, so it's returning a number with a decimal point. And we send it 2 doubles and a character that we're calling op. Well, this is an operation character. And we have a few options: plus, minus, times, and divided by. Okay? Then we have this, which is the default. Okay? All right. This is a switch statement. And it looks different than the other switch statement. It's using this lambda expression right here. Basically, it's saying, if it's this, then do this over here. And return this over here. If it's this, then return this over here. So we're doing return switch, by the way. It's returning whatever this comes out to be. So when this is here, we're returning that. When this is here, we're returning that. When this is here, return that. This is here. And then we've got another thing here that we haven't talked about. This is the ternary operator. So what this does is it takes a true or false statement. So we're going to say B is not equal to 0. If that's true, then we'll do the first thing on either side of this little colon here. So the question mark says, is this true? If it is, do what's here. If it's not, go to the other side of the colon and do what's there. Okay? It's called the ternary operator, and it's an operator that we didn't discuss before. But it's very useful, and we'll talk about it later on another day. But just know that that's what's going on here. We've got a true or false statement, and then we've got, if it's true, do the thing on the left, and if it's false, do the thing on the right. And this tells it which side is which. Okay. All right. A ternary operator is great for writing one-liners, so you don't need an if statement. Okay, so there's that. Now, we send in a double, we send in another double, we send in a character. It looks for that, an operator character. It looks for that operator character, and then if it matches it up, it does whatever's over here. So if we send in 0, 5, and plus, it finds the plus, and it adds 0 and 5. Now we can multiply here. And it will give us 0 because 0 times 5 is 0. And we can divide. Okay. This is going to be 0. 0 divided by 5 is 0. Now, if we switch these and run it, we're going to get, you cannot divide by 0. That's our error. Okay. So because this argument has a string argument, when I print that argument here, argument exception, when I print that, it's going to put whatever's in here. Okay. Or actually, that was divide by 0. So I actually didn't print the exception. I printed out, you cannot divide by 0. So let's do this. We're going to put a different character here. Okay, it doesn't know what this is, so we're gonna run it, and it's gonna give us an exception that says invalid operator, which is what we wrote here. And that's it. And it'll tell us where it happened. So it happened on calculate on line 15, and it was initiated at main line 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Boop. Okay. Actually, this is line 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is where it happened. We put in this, and this was wrong. So it says it started there at line 4, and then it went down here, and it threw this exception at line 15. Okay. This is going to be a little bit over your head, I believe. Maybe not. Maybe you're super good at this stuff, but it's most likely going to be a little bit over your head, and that's fine, because we're learning concepts. Okay? All right, so that's the mini lab. We made a calculator. Now, let's look at the summary. So what did we learn today? We learned methods. We learned how to define methods. We learned about parameters or arguments. Okay, those are the things in the parentheses. That's parameters or parameters. I don't know. You guys say parameters? I don't know. Parameters, return values, and overloading. So return values is what it returns. Overloading is having multiple different methods with different parameters or arguments. Okay. We learned error handling. We learned what try, catch, and finally do. And then we learned how to prevent crashes and improve the user experience by, for instance, doing a while loop where we could just have them do it again instead of crashing their program. Okay? Where they cry and scream and run away. All right? Okay, so this week's take-home puzzle. Get started on this early, okay? Because this was a rough one. And I know it was a rough one. It's going to be the roughest one we have for a while, okay? Today was a rough one. So get started on this early. That way you can get your questions in. Here we go. Puzzle 1. Write a method that takes a user's name and age and returns a greeting message. Okay? Now, it's got to take their name and age, but this is what I want you to do. I want you to make sure that they can type anything they want in there. And I want you to continue to ask them to enter it until you get what you need. Okay? So you're going to write a method that takes a user's name and age. And if they don't provide you a name or an age, that's, well, the name is going to be text. But the age, if they don't provide you an integer, then I want you to ask them again. Okay? All right, and then puzzle 2, we're going to modify the calculator program, which I will enter the text into the thing. And it's going to continue to run until the user chooses to exit. Okay? And they can exit by just typing exit into the program. Okay? So it's going to take information that the user inputs instead of having preset information. It's going to take information that the user inputs, and if they type exit, it's going to exit. Okay? And I want you to add an option to clear the console between calculations. Okay? You're going to have to Google. You're going to have to Google for this one. You know, you need to get used to Googling answers, because that's how you're going to get better at programming. You're going to look at things that solutions other people have done, and you're going to implement them in your own software. Okay? So I want you to Google how to clear the console, and then I want you to do it every time somebody runs a calculation. Okay? All right. That's it. That's the whole thing. Do you have any questions? You're welcome. Any questions for me before we wrap up class? go ahead and get this over into the chat. Okay. No, you just have to rewatch the end. Okay, I'm gonna get this uploaded pretty quick. Last time I didn't because I had some stuff I needed to cut out. But I will go ahead and upload this quickly, and you should be able to review it. So, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it. You've been great following along, trying to grasp some of these contexts, and the stuff we've been working on. So I really appreciate it, and I'm always here available to help. Just leave something in the chat and I'll get to it as soon as I can, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.